Hello everyone and welcome to the Chrissy B Show, the UK's only TV programme that's dedicated to your mental health and well-being. Today's show is all about suicide prevention, and with World Suicide Prevention Day just around the corner, we want to do our part to save lives. Here to give us a deeper insight into the psychology of suicide and what can be done to help those who are feeling desperate is one of our resident psychologists, Dr. Nihara Krause. We're also going to have some real accounts from people affected by suicide, and later we talk to Phil Moore and Sangeeta Mahajan of Thrive London Suicide Prevention Group. We also have our nutritionist Hannah Richards, who'll be speaking about foods that can lift your mood and help you feel happier. And our weekly regular Helena Chard will be giving us the latest positive news. And finally, I'll be sharing a few questions that people who've been suicidal wish they'd been asked. According to the Samaritan Suicide Statistics Report 2017, there have been 6,188 suicides registered in the UK and 451 in the Republic of Ireland, with the highest demographic range for suicide being that of men aged 40 to 44. That averages to one suicide every 2 hours and approximately 10 times more people attempting suicide. Suicide is still the leading cause of death for young people in the UK, and female suicide rates are the highest they've been in a decade. However, men are most at risk as male suicide rates are still substantially higher, with men being 3 times more likely to kill themselves than women in the UK. With statistics on the rise, it's hard not to wonder what we can do to raise awareness and prevent more people from taking their own lives. We went to Twitter to hear your thoughts on suicide and prevention. Sober and Soulless says, today, 4 years ago, I attempted suicide, was resuscitated and lived. I'm so thankful every day for the doctors that saved my life. Unity says, there is always another way. There is always someone willing to help. I am willing to help. Rest in peace, brother. Marcelo tells his friend, thank you for giving yourself another chance. I will always be here for you, and I love you with all my heart. Melissa Elise Hall says, after years of struggle, God gave me the gift of hope. I have never been the same. And Linda says, vulnerability is uncomfortable but so necessary to keep yourself safe. So some interesting tweets there, and if you would like to comment on today's topic or let us know if you are doing anything for Suicide Prevention Day, email us on info@chrissybshow.tv. You can also tweet us at Chrissy B Show or leave a message on our Facebook page, The Chrissy B Show. But now it's time for Behind the Fame with Helena Chard. Welcome to the show, Helena.
Thanks, Chrissy.
And you're going to be giving us some positive news today.
Positive news, love positive news. So starting off with Mo Farah, he's 34 now, and he won gold again in the 10,000 metres at the World Athletics Championships, which is, which has been really, really good. So it's held his best ever race, actually, which is good. And he's now retiring, but he's still going to carry on with his marathons. Okay. And he's got a really good outlook because he's now branching onto something new, and he's got the support of his family. And
that's nice.
He's just given some really encouraging words to people, you know, if you really want to go for something, go for it, and really to train hard and get people into professional sports. So he's a real lovely positive influence, which is great. And we were talking about the Samaritans' recent campaign, which was the Big Listen. We spoke about that a while ago, which is quite interesting, and it's sort of, there's lots of people doing similar kinds of things, and it made me actually think of Sinead O'Connor, who thankfully has come through her upset, because obviously she filmed something on Facebook and was very upset and had a breakdown and was really alone and suicidal. But the good thing about it is her friends rallied around her and said, you know, we're looking after her, which it was so sad. That
was amazing. I know, it was heartbreaking.
It was heartbreaking, but good. Yeah, it was really good because it made everyone think, oh, you know, and it really was. And you know, afterwards she has said that she hopes by sharing her feelings that it will help others, and I think it definitely will.
Yeah, I mean, just showing that vulnerability for everyone to see. Yeah, that's bound to help people open up. Really happy for her at the moment. And Time to Change, as we know, the charity, they've got their recent campaign is called In Your Corner, and it's going on for 5 years now. But it's aimed at encouraging men and young people to be more open and supportive for everyone who's suffering mental health issues. And so it's really to look out for your mates, and if they're acting differently, then you step in. So that's the whole ethos, which is really important. But it's sort of similar to the Big Listen, but it's great because it's something, it's going to be in everyone's conscious to be watching out, which I think is really lovely. And Jonny Wilkinson as well, who is a world-class rugby player. He's really deep. I don't know if you know him. He's fantastic. He's obviously brilliant with all his achievements and everything, but he
he shared who's been in his corner, and he's opened up about the pressures of elite sport, and his coach, Dave Ulred, who I think just brought out a book, has really helped him from quite an early age and got him through lots and lots of problems, and really was the pressure of the sport which took a toll on him. He had injuries, and it was that same thing that he was lost and he couldn't focus his moving on and everything. But really quite interesting, and the whole thing is, it's again that lots of men don't see mental health as being relevant to them, so it's a really good positive spin, which is lovely.
Really good.
And moving on to something very quickly, last thing.
Last one. Yes.
So there's a new BBC report that's come out, and it's something we do know about. Time, not material goods, raise happiness, but it's to do with using your money to free up your time. So for instance, if you've got some money and you can have a cleaner come in, etc., to give you more time, that is just worth everything, and I completely understand that. As being someone who struggles with time, it's a blessing, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah.
So a positive one to end.
Thank you so much, Helena.
Thank you, Chrissy.
And we'll see you again
always.
next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, so don't go away, because now we're going to be speaking to Dr. Nihara Krause. Welcome back to the show, Nihara.
No, it's lovely to be here, Chrissy.
So we've got quite a bit to get through, Nihara. Obviously, it's a very important show that we're doing today, and the aim, obviously, is to save lives. So, but first of all, can we start off with why, maybe some people feel suicidal in the first place?
Suicide is about wanting to end your life, and for many people it's trying to look at what it is that makes them feel life's not worth living. And there's a number of different factors, and they can be broken up into what might be underlying factors and then triggers to those underlying factors. So the most common underlying factors are some form of a mental illness, and out of those the most common mental illness is clinical depression. So our statistics show that about 70% of people who go on to complete suicide have had clinical depression. But there also might be some sort of psychosis where there's a departure from reality in terms of thinking. Sometimes anorexia nervosa increases your risk of suicide, or if you have an addiction, particularly alcohol or recreational drugs. So those sorts of mental illnesses. Sometimes it's to do with people who find difficulty in expressing their emotion, particularly anger, and so people might think that that there's no point in living because they can't live with the anger that they have or with the sadness that they have. Sometimes it's an impulsive gesture, and occasionally it's because there is something such as enormous trauma in their lives which they feel that they can't somehow recover from.
We heard earlier as well in the intro that there's the rates for females, young females, is on the rise as well. It's risen in the last decade. That's quite worrying as well.
Yes, it is. It is. I mean, I think the rates for young people generally are increasing, and that's very concerning. There's a number of trigger reasons as well, and the triggers are things like bereavement, some sort of illness, money problems, legal problems, divorce, massive life changes, and increasingly, if you think about young people, increasingly demanding stressful lives that young people feel they don't have the resources to deal with, really.
That's true. Nihara, what about, because obviously we want to do our part and help not only the viewers that are watching that may be feeling suicidal, but also what can we do to help other people? So maybe if there is someone in our family or a work colleague, even a stranger that we notice or maybe even says that they're feeling suicidal, what can we do to help?
The most important thing, I think, is to connect, because a lot of people who say that they got to the point of wanting to kill themselves, will say they felt incredibly lonely, incredibly cut off and detached from other people, and then finally from themselves. So if we can connect in any way, it doesn't have to be anything very clever that we have to do, literally to pop in, to say hello if someone's on their own, if they're lonely, if we've been worried about them because they haven't been coming to see us as much or got involved in things. Don't be afraid to talk, and people are often very afraid because they think, what if I say the wrong thing? What actually if I prompt them to do something even worse? Will I be the trigger? And all I wanted to say to reassure people is that it's really important not to be afraid to ask someone if they're feeling really awful, whether they've got to a crisis point in their life, because it's a real relief for people that they can say to them, actually, I'm not in a great place. Also, I think offering practical practical help, you know, so if it is, say, a financial issue, maybe just sort of sitting down with them, trying to look at whether the problem is as difficult as they seem. Practical things like maybe looking after their children, giving them a bit of time off so they can go and do something. So again, it doesn't have to be amazing kind of things. It's just literally human contact and human discussion.
And what about if a person is feeling suicidal themselves? What can they, obviously I know it's like a dark place to get into, and sometimes they think, I can't get out of this cycle, but is there anything that they can do themselves, apart from asking for help, obviously, is there anything else on their own that they can do?
I think it's first of all recognizing that the way that they're feeling, and it might feel absolutely real, but that the way that they're feeling is related to their mood state. And so if they can do anything at all to help themselves with their mood state, so, you know, just reach out and connect, but also go out, you know, just change your situation a little bit. If you find that, you know, you can't get out of the house, you're sleeping all day, just try and wake up half an hour earlier. Try and think about your relationship with alcohol, for example, and recognize that that will be a definite trigger in terms of how low your mood might feel. So just try and think about cutting down on your drinking, if that's the case. We know that exercise helps with mood, but just trying to get outside and just do a little walk will be helpful sometimes.
So do something, even if it's something
Do something, some reading, look at some inspirational quotes, you know, just try and connect through social media or through, there's a lot of very helpful websites. So I think the important thing is to just try and break the loneliness.
Yeah, definitely. Nihara, thank you so much, and we'll see you again very soon.
No, thank you.
Okay. Right, guys, so don't go away, because after the break we talk to two incredible people and what they've done to help prevent suicide. They are the very well-known duo Jonny Benjamin and Neil Laybourn. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show, everyone, your program that looks after your mental health and well-being. So as we've been talking about suicide, we know that it has tragically taken the lives of many people, but even at the brink of death, there is a chance to overcome everything and choose life. So this is exactly what happened with my two guests, Jonny Benjamin and Neil Laybourn. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
So lovely to have you both on. I know you're both very busy because you do lots of talks up and down the country about what happened.
Yeah.
So it's great to have you on to talk about this today. So first of all, let's start with you, Jonny. Can you tell us briefly what was going on and what actually led to the day that you decided to take your life?
So I was 20, and basically I'd just been diagnosed with something called schizoaffective disorder. So it's like schizophrenia and bipolar, and I was in hospital at the time in North London, and I'd given up. I'd been ill for a while, and I was in hospital and I was given this diagnosis, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. It was just too painful.
Was it actually getting the diagnosis that kind of made it worse for you?
Yeah, because I think it was the diagnosis. You know, I thought in my head, I was like, well, I know something's not right, but like, I don't know, it must be like depression. I can sort of cope with that diagnosis. But when I was told, oh, it's this schizophrenia, this schizoaffective disorder, I was like, people don't get better from schizophrenia. That's what I thought, people don't get better from schizophrenia. You never hear anything positive about people with schizophrenia. So when I got that diagnosis, I was like, this is it, like, you know, for me, you know, my family, I'm going to be ill for the rest of my life, and what's the point? It might as well just, you know, end it now and just get it over with, because it's just, it's no hope, it's hopelessness.
But so. it had actually been a build-up of things from your childhood, hadn't it? So that was like the sort of, for you at the time, it was the worst news that you could have got. Yeah,
I mean, this has been going on for, I was 10 when I started to hear a voice, and I started becoming delusional, but you know, with the voice, I was like, this is real, you know, everyone hears this. And with the delusion, again, I thought it was real. I thought there were cameras watching me, and I thought it was all real. So when I was told, not only was I told about the diagnosis, but I was told, you know, this is all in your head, and that was a massive shock, because I was like, you know, but these things are real. And so I guess it was a combination, of the diagnosis, but also realizing that my head is really messed up. I thought it was messed up, and how am I ever gonna recover from it? It's just it was too big a task. It was too impossible a task.
It felt overwhelming.
It was really overwhelming.
Did you talk to anyone about what you were feeling at that time, or was just not going to talk to anyone about this?
But I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed and I was ashamed about the diagnosis, about what was going on in my head, and particularly about feeling suicidal, because it's just something that I just couldn't even articulate the words. It was just too embarrassing. It was too embarrassing. I was too ashamed. I was struggling as well. I was struggling with my sexuality, and it was a combination of all of these things. I couldn't.
You'd never sort of spoken up about.
Yeah, never.
So everything was kind of kept inside.
Yeah.
And then you get this diagnosis on top of everything, and then that's when you decided to take your life.
Yeah.
I'm just going to bring Neil in at this point. Neil, you're just going about your day, going to work and everything. Had you ever sort of experienced anything to do with mental health issues yourself? Did you know anyone with mental health issues, or was this something like quite a new thing for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I was very much like any other person in the population. I didn't know about suicide, mental health. Growing up, there was no education about it, and I think, as something Jonny alluded to, like all the messages were quite negative about it. So I mean, all through my adolescence and my early adult life, no, I never had a conversation around mental health at all. So it was something that really only came into my life when I met Jonny.
And actually, I think this is a perfect example, because you weren't a mental health professional. Like you said, it wasn't something that you really knew about. You didn't know how to talk to someone with a mental health issue. But that particular day, you saved Jonny's life because of something that you said. So, Jonny, can you tell us about that? So you were in hospital, and then you decided to take your life. Talk us through what happened.
Yeah, so it was, I've been in hospital for a month, and this was January 2008, and 14th of January 2008, I was like, this is the day, and I ran away from the hospital, and it was all planned out, and I went to this bridge, and I went onto the edge of the bridge, and my memory is quite hazy of the day, but I was standing there and in my own world, and then this stranger approached me and stood next to me and started talking, and at first I was like, go away, just go away, there's nothing you can say, but he wouldn't. He was really grounded and really calm, and I wasn't, and I don't know, it was his energy, his energy, I think, at first, because I was really like, just because he was so calm, and I was, he just managed to get through to me eventually.
Do you remember what he was saying to you? Or just like, it was just a voice at the time, like just some guy talking to you?
Well, he was asking me lots of questions.
Okay.
Asking me lots of questions. Just trying to engage me in a conversation, I think. And, as I said at first, I was like, I'm not talking to you. But then, I don't know what it was. Actually, there was one thing, basically he told me where he grew up, and we grew up near each other.
Okay.
So
you found a common
ground. Yeah. So we had a little connection, and I don't know, I remember after that I kind of engaged a bit more with conversation, and we actually talked, and I did actually I did open up to him. I don't know why. Maybe being another guy as well, a young guy.
Yeah.
And he was, as I said, because he was so calm and patient, and I hadn't had the opportunity really I was in the hospital, and in the hospital it was difficult to talk. People
just have a normal conversation.
Like nurses and stuff always rushing around, and he was this guy that was like, I'm on my way to work, but it's fine. I'll stay put and just wait for you. And it was that. I just think he was very patient and committed. And actually, one of the things that he said that was a real big thing for me was he said, don't be embarrassed, don't be embarrassed about anything that's going on in your head. And that, I think, was really, I hadn't heard that before.
Wow. That's exactly what you needed, actually, because that's what you were feeling about the things that you were going through.
Yeah, I was really embarrassed. So for someone to say, don't be embarrassed, I think that was...
That was one of the key.
That was one of the key things, yeah.
Neil, what was it that you saw? Because something interesting, actually, that Jonny said was that, when Neil first approached him, it was like, no, I don't want to talk. At that point, I think most people kind of back off. But you, for some reason, you didn't. You just carried on talking. What was it that you noticed, and why did you stay after he'd said, I don't want to talk?
Well, when I first approached him, I didn't go up at all with the intention of like trying to talk somebody down, because I actually had no idea why he was sitting there. It was like 90% in my head that somebody who might want to jump off the bridge or hurt themselves, but I didn't know. So that was the first thing, was just to kind of walk up calmly and say, hi, and why are you sitting here? And it was a moment, like I did completely like pierce his world, like he was in a completely other place and he didn't see me approaching him. So, but yeah, like quite quickly it was obvious like why he was there, and he did, like he told me that he was there to jump, to hurt himself, to take his life, and all of a sudden, like everything went away, and sort of like cognition even went away. You just kind of really acting on instinct. This was the first time that I would have ever been in that situation, and yeah, the instinct was just like, okay, well, you're the only person here now, and so you really have to like listen to what this person is saying. Because
were you scared?
I tried to think about what emotions were going on at the time, but I think, like I said, like things just fall away, and you don't really experience too much emotion. You're very much just in the moment. I felt the biggest thing I felt was I felt a sense of empathy come over me. It was like a wave of empathy when he said to me, look, I don't want to be here anymore, and just like life is too much, and he started to open up about like why he was there. I just thought, God, this, if I can do anything just to change his perspective just today, that would be great. And so that's when I think you make a split decision right there and then, actually, that no matter how long it takes, like I'll be there.
Yeah.
My main thought was like, I do need to get the professionals here, because I'm certainly not trained. So my thought process was, if I can, get him down onto the street, or we can go to a coffee shop or sit down. But I think the main overriding way to get there was that it would be a joint decision. Like I felt like I didn't want to, try and grab him, or I didn't want to, try and trick his mind or change his viewpoint. I just wanted to let him know that it's fine, whatever's going on, and I'm here to listen. And, if you want to come on this journey with me, like we can talk about it, and we can maybe look at, resolving this together today. Don't worry about tomorrow, just today. And there were points in the conversation where his engagement level changed, and I think when I mentioned about sitting down and talking and just going away from that dangerous place, that's really when I noticed like a difference in, like I could see it in his eyes. Maybe there's another perspective today other than this. Which then led him to kind of say, okay, I'm going to step over, and I thought I was one step closer to, getting the profession, us coming to a decision together to what we were going to do next.
So remembering, guys, that Neil is not he wasn't a mental health professional, but just engaging with Jonny made all of the difference. And that's exactly the point that we're trying to get across for you, not to be afraid. If you notice someone looking down, someone says something to you that sounds quite negative and you kind of suspect there's something wrong, it's good to actually talk to them. Because to cut a long story short, then you did come away from the bridge, then something else happened after that, but you've done quite a few interviews, and I'm sure our viewers can look that up when you have the time. But now, the great thing is now that you're doing talks, all around the country, you're talking about suicide prevention, you're sharing your story, Jonny, and from that action that you took that day, so many lives, you can't even imagine how many lives have probably been saved from that. So, if people are watching now, guys, that sort of saying, oh, I don't know if I would be comfortable in that situation to say anything, what would you say to them?
Yeah, it's something that we get asked a lot, and I get asked because I was in that position.
Yeah.
And it's very simple actually to not worry about what to say, because you don't have to say anything. You know, so listening is the key.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't ever feel like you need to give advice.
Yeah.
We know, because through Jonny's experience and through our, you know, travelling up and down and talking about this story, and we've met people who have been in the same position that Jonny's been in, who've been, and what they've said to us is they just want somebody to talk to, somebody to understand, and a safe place to do that. So the advice would be, you don't need to give advice, you just need to stick with it and listen, and give that person the space to themselves, you know, look at things a bit differently. And there are ways to signpost people. What we try to do now is educate organisations that we go into through these talks. Like we work alongside mental health charities, we work alongside, you know, government departments that offer resources to people, and we like to kind of take that information and make sure that where we go somewhere, we can tell those people. So you can signpost people as well, which is really, really important to know.
Definitely. How about you, Jonny? What would you say to our viewers? What would you give?
No, everything that Neha said, but also I think reminding people that this is temporary. You know, that this will pass. That's the thing that Neil. The real key thing that Neil said to me was towards the end of our conversation, and he was like, "I think you're going to get through this. You know, I think you'll get better." And people need to hear that, because, you know, when I was in that place, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe I would get better, but just having someone say,
someone believe in you.
Yeah, someone believe in you, that can make such a difference. So just saying, you know, this will pass, this will get better, I think it's simple, but it can make such a big impact.
Definitely. Gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the programme. Do keep in touch and let us know what you're going to be up to. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys, so don't go away, because after the break, we're going to be highlighting our good cause of the week. I'll be speaking to Chair and Co-Chair of the Thrive London Suicide Prevention Group, Phil Moore and Sangeeta Mahajan. Chrissy B, and my show is all about improving your mental health and being happy. Join me every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 10 p.m. on my channel Sky 203. Visit chrissybshow.tv for more information and subscribe to our YouTube channel Chrissy B Show. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chrissy B Show, and on our Facebook page, The Chrissy B Show. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show, everyone, the TV program that looks after your mental health and well-being. So here with us to continue the conversation about suicide prevention are Phil Moore and Sangeeta Mahajan of Thrive London Suicide Prevention Group. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi.
It's lovely to have you both on.
Thank you.
So first of all, I'd like to obviously ask, you know, who are Thrive, what do you do, and how did it all start?
Okay. Thrive London is a campaign that was started by Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, in July, and it's set up to be a social movement across the whole of the capital to engage people to work on improving their well-being across the whole of the capital, and to begin to eliminate stigma and discrimination around mental health. And we're doing that by getting a conversation going. Already Thrive London has spoken to many thousands of people, including 200 people who are experts in various fields as well as experts by experience. And that conversation has led to this document that we have got, that is going out to continue that conversation with the Londoners to shape the future of mental well-being across the whole of this capital.
And how's it going so far? What's the response been like?
It's been fantastic, really quite unbelievable. So already there have been something like 12 million opportunities for people to access Thrive London, and over 15,000 direct interactions. So that's quite phenomenal for a social movement in a capital like London.
That is brilliant. Okay. So Sangeeta, I'd like to speak to you now, because you've actually had a personal experience. So we are doing this programme in aid of World Suicide Prevention Day that's coming up. Can you tell us about your personal experience?
Yes, most certainly. I was very blessed to be the mother to a gorgeous boy called Sagars, who was just an absolute star. He was a very good musician, a linguist. He was a drummer, absolutely fantastic at percussion. He was very warm-hearted. He had all the time in the world for his friends. Very generous, kind soul. He went to university, and after his second year, he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder during his summer holidays. And unfortunately, very soon after his diagnosis, he ended his own life, which came as a huge shock to everyone because it wasn't really expected. And if you knew Sagar, you would not ever think that somebody like him could end his life, because he was so full of life, you know, and he had a fabulous sense of humor, and he made everybody happy, and he was a happy kid, and you wouldn't put the two things together, you know. And at the time I started researching and looking at what this thing was that had landed on my doorstep, you know, out of the blue, and I found that suicide was actually the largest killer of young people in this country. I was shocked that, you know, we don't talk about it. Nobody talks about it. Even now, you know, when I start talking about it, then other people will come and say to me, you know, I lost so-and-so. Everybody, you know, so many people have lost people to suicide, but then they never talk about it.
Why do you think that is, Sangeeta?
Well, in our society, I think death is stigmatized anyway. Mental illness is stigmatized, and suicide is just another layer of darkness, and it's almost like, ooh, let's not go there. It's too much. It's too painful. Yeah. And I think it's almost like too much. I've been very lucky in that I have had tremendous support from my colleagues and my family, friends. Sagars' friends have been amazing, and his friends' parents. So a whole community has come together through this tragedy, and we are all little mental health advocates in our own right, you know.
Now you say, you know, people don't like to go there. Well, we are really going there today, because the purpose of this show is to break the stigma, and it is okay to talk if you are going through something, you know. I mean, I remember when I was depressed, I didn't want to talk about it because I felt I wouldn't be understood, that I did feel like I was the only one that was depressed. And I know it's hard to talk about it, but the more we do, the better it is. And we just have to break down those barriers, and that's why we're doing the show. We really want to encourage you who are going through something that haven't spoken to anyone, please just make that first step. Even if it's just one step today. I know it's really hard sometimes to talk, isn't it, about certain things, but you know, you won't be misunderstood, and we're here for you. Even if you say, I don't have family, I don't have friends that I feel comfortable, you have us, we're here for you.
Exactly.
Thrive are there for you as well.
Thrive, that is one of the main aims of Thrive, to help people connect, to make people feel less alone, to create communities, to help the local councils come up with proper suicide prevention plans, that people can access resources easily. And we signpost, we work with charities like Papyrus and Samaritans. And, you know, it's about bringing everybody together, the private sector, the public sector, the charities, and, you know, each individual just feeling free to walk up to somebody and say, hey, are you okay? If, you know, if their body language is not right or something, it's okay to ask that. It's okay to talk to strangers.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up, because I spoke about this a couple of months ago, but I was in a cafe, and I just noticed this gentleman next to me in his own world, but he looked so down, but he was really like, you could see there was something up. And I was like, should I speak to him? Should I, you know, just see if he's all right at least? And when I did eventually sort of muster up the courage to actually just say, excuse me, are you okay? He almost jumped out of his skin. I thought, oh my goodness, I really like made him jump. But you know, he didn't sort of talk to me much. He said he was fine, and then he got up and left. But I think if I hadn't done that, I would have felt really bad, because I knew there was something going on. But you know, at least we can all do something. If you, rather than being buried in our phones and just not noticing people around us, to at least say something. You know, are you okay, or just a smile or something.
One of the key things about Thrive London is we're very keen to get people confident that they can talk to people. They're not going to make it worse. A lot of people hold back because they think, oh dear, I'm going to make it worse for
I have to be a mental health expert.
Exactly. So what we want to do is to raise awareness and give people the confidence that they can talk first about their own mental health and their struggles, but equally talk about other people's mental health and their struggles. And to do that, we've got to really begin to eliminate the stigma and the discrimination.
Yes, yeah.
And the way we do that is to talk. And it's great to hear people like the Royals and other celebrities talking. But that's great because that gives permission to other people, but we all need to start talking as well.
Absolutely.
And this is about going throughout London and saying, come on guys, take a lead. Take a lead for yourself, take a lead with your communities to really maintain your well-being by talking.
Now, one of the brilliant things you're doing as well actually is your problem-solving booths. Can you tell us about that? Because I think that's a genius idea.
Yeah, problem-solving booths are a real novelty. I don't know if you remember back in February that one of the charities, the mental health charities, had a campaign called Time to Talk. And it had a strapline, Conversations Change Lives. And I think that's the key here. So what happened was there was a young person who was just out of prison who was talking to some of the Thrive London workers, and they said, what do you need to try and improve your situation? And they said, what I really need is something here and now, not somewhere I'm referred to in a building somewhere with people I don't know. Give me somebody here. And they, out of that, developed the problem booths, which are 2 chairs, one for a person to be helped and one for a person who's going to do the helping. And they sit down and they have a conversation. There's a wonderful clip on YouTube that we'll give you the link for that you can put up later that people can watch that shows it in action. But what happens is people then are in a situation where they feel safe. There are people around to just make sure that everything is okay, but they then go ahead, have a conversation, and they get help from each other. Do you know, a wonderful thing that's happened is people in positions of power and authority are starting to be vulnerable. So I know of a mental health trust chief executive who sat down in one of these booths and asked for help from young people with some of the things that he's having to deal with in his life. The Metropolitan Police are on the tubes, going to these booths, sitting down and asking the public for help with the things that they struggle with. That is the way that we're going to give people permission. If they can talk about it, surely I can. And I think that will give rise to conversations, and again, conversations change lives.
Definitely.
And it is about being human. You know, it doesn't matter whether you are a student or a mother or a high-flying executive. At the end of the day, we are all human. And we connect at a very human level, which is beyond all the labels.
Yes, it's true.
You know, and we need to be able to connect at that level. And at that level, we are all valid. We are all able to listen in a way that is understanding. But sometimes it is just about speaking up. You know, and just saying something that you've been carrying around.
Because once you do, it's such a relief, isn't it?
Exactly.
And especially going back to the point about, you know, people in authority actually opening up. And I can imagine how, you know, it must be hard to do that. Oh, you know, I'm a manager, I have to keep it together for my staff, I can't fall apart, or I'm a mum, or I'm a father. And the thoughts are there, but as long as we show that it's okay, you know, if you're going through something, everyone does at some point in their life.
Exactly, and being vulnerable makes you human.
Yes, and it's actually a strength. I believe it's a strength.
It's hard, but it's a strength.
And there's asking for help is what strong people do.
Yes, exactly.
You know?
There's a wonderful blog just been published about somebody talking about the workplace and how can we be properly able to cope in the workplace. And one of the straplines they've come up with is okay to be not okay. And I think we need to get that across in the workplace, because the workplace is where often we need support through periods of poor mental health. And we all have those, it's normal to have those, but what we need is to be able to be open and say, actually guys, I need a bit of help at the moment. And I think it's okay to be not okay is a wonderful phrase to have.
And it's about resilience, isn't it? And you know, resilience is understood by some as a certain level of hardiness, you know, toughness. But actually, resilience is not that. It's about acknowledging that yes, something I need support, and getting that support for yourself from within yourself and from without.
And actually, when you do as well, you're in a better position also to help other people. Because say, for example, you're a manager, you can then help your staff. You'll notice you're more sensitive to people's needs once you've once you've been through something yourself as well.
And for the hard-nosed businessman, there is an economic benefit because you don't lose people from work for long periods of time.
True. You're helping the economy as well.
Altogether, there is every reason to make sure this happens. And one of the things that Thrive wants to do is to work with businesses and with employers to make sure that this happens in a really robust way.
What about future plans? We've run out of time. Gosh, the time's flying today. What about future plans for Thrive? What are you planning to do?
Well, we're getting out into the community with a lot of things. There's a lot of community engagement processes going on. There's stalls in a lot of the local events. And you can engage with Thrive through the website, and there's questionnaires and a whole variety of things.
Social media campaign.
Lots of things going on social media. I've never seen as much Twitter activity is around Thrive London. So there's plenty going on there to engage with, and we would love people to say what they think about it, where they think it's working, give us good ideas, give us suggestions like this young people came up with about the problem-solving booths. More and more of that will really help Thrive to be a social movement, not just us in our ivory towers pontificating about what should happen.
I mean, this
it
is
needs
one
to
of
be
the
real
things.
people.
This is one of the things that I actually loved about Thrive when I saw, you know, your tweets and everything. The fact that you're actually asking people for their opinions.
That's right.
That's quite rare to see nowadays. Normally, so this is what we're doing and that's it. But the fact that you're actually asking and going out there and getting people and asking for their ideas and actually implementing them as well. That's I think that's just
absolutely
amazing.
Right.
Yes.
Brilliant. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to both of you. Thank you so much. And I'm sure
Chrissy.
we are going to be featuring more of Thrive on this programme.
We'd be delighted.
It's actually an honour for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, so don't go away because after the break, I'll be hearing from nutritionist Hannah Richards on foods that lift your mood and help you to feel happier. And I'll be sharing a few questions that people who've been suicidal wish they'd been asked. So don't go away. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show, everyone, where today we've been talking all about suicide and suicide prevention. And now we have our very special guest, Hannah Richards, who is, of course, one of our regular nutritionists. Welcome back to the show, Hannah.
Hello, Chrissy, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, people might be wondering, what does this have to do with the topic of today, suicide and suicide prevention? But nutrition has a massive effect on our mood, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you've heard loads of people talking at the moment about the relationship with the gut and the brain and how our mental health is affected by what we eat and vice versa. So a huge connection,
Okay. So now you're going to be telling us about some food and drink that actually helps to lift our mood and make us feel happier.
And we're going to have a cup of tea as well.
Yes. That's why I love having you on. Yes.
Okay, so should we get going?
Yes.
So the main thing that I brought in is green tea. Because green tea has an amino acid called L-theanine, and it sort of helps to create a state of calm and peace.
Okay.
So the thing I love about tea is that it's a bit of a ritual as well. It takes a little time to make, especially if you have the loose tea. You have to sit down, you get your pot, you get your cups, and you're already getting relaxed and creating a sense of calm. So we'll do that today. So these, you see these little things?
These are so cute.
These are proper tea from China, and all we're going to do is pop one in a tiny teapot like this, so I can just show you. And you know, obviously you can get tea in a tea bag, and that's great too. And there are loads of good teas out there now. It's sort of a minefield about tea, isn't it? But the way that they do it in China and Japan is that they sort of bunch all the tea leaves up together and put them in these little sweetie wrappers. And then you can very easily just drop them into the tea, and then it'll just start to diffuse. Now, the longer that you leave the tea leaves in the pot, the richer the flavour becomes and the more nutritional benefits you'll get from it as well. Now, you probably see lavender in people's bedrooms and shops and in vases, but lavender, give it a smell.
That smells lovely.
Lavender is a lovely herb for reducing anxiety. Now, you don't often get it in a tea bag, but you can buy it in a herb or a spice shop like this. So if we just take these 2 cups here and just add a little bit of lavender in there and then pour some hot water in, you'll be able to start smelling it immediately. And it looks very pretty as well. Turns the water blue. It's the
I was
only.
going to mention that, but yeah, okay.
It's the only good food that does turn the water blue.
That smells lovely.
And you know you
Not
can
just for smelling anyway. You have to drink it.
you have to drink it. But you can add some honey in it because it gives it a nice natural sweetness. That's no problem at all. If we put too much high sugar foods in things, if we eat too many Mars bars or Haribo bears or too many sugars, then it lifts our mood to a degree that makes us very anxious and a bit sort of on edge all the time. That sort of phrase "tired and wired" comes to mind. And when we're in that mood,
We're not very rational. We probably don't make very good decisions, and all the little things probably bother us. So we want to go from that state, being tired and wired, over into being rest and digest. And these teas will help you do that. So lavender is a great thing for nighttime as well. You can have lots of lavender in your bedroom.
Yes.
And you can even put lavender essential drops in your bath at night as well, and that would help reduce anxiety. The other things I did bring in were some foods which I just thought were breakfast foods, really, that we all know and we all use, but I think that sometimes if you know what the effect of the food has on you, you might be more inclined to use it. So avocados. We all love an avocado. Yes. We've gone avocado mad, haven't we?
We have a little bit.
You know what? In the hospitals, more people are coming in with injuries to their hands from cutting the avocado, and it's not been soft enough, and they've slipped and cut the. Anyway. Avocados are a great source of monosaturated fat, which feeds off our brain cells, which feeds our body, our brains, our muscles, our ligaments, our tendons, everything. So the more fat you get in your diet, again, the more stable a person you're going to be. Can you remember, maybe the last time you just ate sugar one day?
Oh yeah.
And you're just a bit wired and jittery, aren't you? So we forget about the good fat because we think it'll make us fat, but it won't. It'll make you a stable, calm person.
Okay.
Blueberries, everyone's favourite.
Yes, I've been eating them.
Should we just try one?
Yeah, sure. I love the sweet ones.
Blueberries are full of antioxidants. Antioxidants reduce inflammation in the body. If you've got antioxidants on one side, free radicals on the other. Free radicals are things like smoke and alcohol and drugs. And antioxidants kill the free radicals. So the more free radicals you have, the more antioxidants you have, the more free radicals you kill, and again, the healthier you're going to be. So get loads of blueberries in your life, as well as bananas. Bananas, again, are going to reduce anxiety, create a state of peace and calm. They fill you up. They've got, good carbohydrates, good fructose in them. People always get a bit worried about bananas. Oh, well, bananas make me fat. Is there too much sugar in there? Absolutely not. I mean, they're again, it's good stuff that we've got. It's all good stuff. Eat it in abundance. The same with oats. Oats are going to make you have lots of energy, like a really long life battery. Oats are. You can put them in a smoothie, make porridge, make those protein balls we made. There's loads of recipes that we've done together that have oats in.
I usually have this as a snack sometimes before I come to the studio with natural yogurt, some strawberries,
perfect,
honey.
Really or nice. You could add some little bowl of almond milk, blueberries. And when you do a smoothie, I always think that two great things go into a smoothie: banana or avocado, because it makes it thick. And it gives it that really nice consistency. Or you could do half and half. But all these foods, the main thing about them is that they repair the body. And if we repair the body through good food, then we not only look after our tum-tums, but we create stability and calm in our heads as well. And if you associate these foods with feeling really good, then you will understand that that's kind of your medicine.
Brilliant. Hannah, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
I'll see you again very soon.
Hope so.
Thank you. Right, guys, so now I'm going to be covering some questions that suicidal people wish they'd been asked, and these come courtesy of themighty.com. So let's go to those now. Alright guys, so as I said, these come courtesy of themighty.com, and the very first thing actually that's important I'd like to mention is at the start of their article, they say that we shouldn't shy away from asking a loved one if they feel suicidal, because it's a myth that it will actually put the idea in their head. So here are some things that people have actually said, questions that they wish they'd been asked when they were feeling suicidal. The first one is, do you want to hang out? So Kira M says, often at my worst times I've always felt isolated and alone. It hasn't been until this year that people really started taking note and inviting me out when I started to feel isolated. Michelle M, this is what she says, a question that she would have loved someone to ask her is, can I lie here with you? So she says, I didn't need more words. My head had enough of those. I did need a hug to know that yes, I did exist to someone. So very important there. Okay, so the next one I'm going to talk about is actually a question that probably we would never think of asking this kind of question, because you might think, oh, if I ask this question, it's going to put ideas in the person's head and it's going to make them feel worse. And the question is, what's the worst thing you're thinking or feeling right now? And this is someone called Elizabeth that said this, and she says, when I feel really badly, I feel obligated to hide it from people. It will be such a relief to know I'm allowed to say the worst of it out loud to someone. So again, I think this is also about breaking that stigma, because you kind of feel, when you are feeling suicidal or depressed, you kind of think, I can't talk about this thing because it's really depressing, it's going to scare people. But actually being given the permission to express yourself, I think, you know, that one just hits it on the head, definitely. Another question that someone had wished they'd been asked, and this one is Michaela. She says, I wish they would just straight up and ask me if I was suicidal. So she said, I always get questions like, how are you doing? Are you okay? Any bad thoughts? You having a good or bad day? And so many other ones that seem to avoid the word suicide. So when these people avoid saying suicide or asking if I'm feeling suicidal, I feel like they don't want to know how I'm really feeling. And to be honest, I think these points are precious, because it just gives some insight into what people actually feel when they're like that, and giving us permission to actually ask certain questions. I think they're really good. I'm not going to cover all of them because we're running out of time, guys, but I'm going to just cover a few more. Another one, again, is just a simple gesture. This is Gina R, and she says a question she wished she would have been asked is, can I hold your hand? So she says, I think it's important to be able to sit with someone who's suicidal and not look for a band-aid. Just sit with them without judgment and let them feel someone, just be there. And that's very true. Sometimes you don't want to talk about what's bothering you. You don't want to go into details. There's some people that like to express themselves, other people that would just they don't want to talk about it because it makes them feel worse, maybe in that particular moment. But just having someone there next to them makes them feel better, makes them feel like they're not alone. Another one is, why? Just a simple why. A simple question I've never been asked in an honestly interested way. No judgment, no clumsy try to make my issues seem less important than I felt they were. Asking why with the true intent of understanding and maybe even forgiving me. Caring for me without getting to hate me for my thoughts. That's what I'd have needed, what I still sometimes need. I think I've got time to cover one more. This one is more of a practical one. People used to hear I'm suicidal and back off, apologizing and disappearing until I was better. The help I needed wouldn't have been huge. A text or a visit to my house when I was anxious to go out, a tag in a silly meme. But unless they asked, how can I help? I was never going to tell them any of that. So you see, I mean, it goes back to what Nihara was saying earlier about just small gestures, small things can make a huge difference. And I think sometimes people are afraid of kind of approaching someone or offering some of that help because they think it's going to be overwhelming, it's going to take up too much of their time, and it doesn't. Just something small will really help and can make a world of difference. So those are just a few of the things that I wanted to share with you. I think it gives quite a good insight into how people feel. And just to say as well, I was never actually, even though I went through many mental health issues, I was never actually suicidal. And I think the only reason I wasn't suicidal was because I had a phobia of death. So in a sense, I was kind of trapped, but I would say I was trapped in a good way, because that thought didn't occur to me because I was so terrified of death. So obviously, you know, it was something that I wouldn't do. But what I do remember is that there was always this tiny little voice inside of me, deep inside, and it was just a little voice of hope. And I remember sometimes that voice was so quiet, it was tiny, it was, you know, it was so tiny compared to the other emotions and things that I was feeling when I was depressed and having panic attacks and feeling dark and all those horrible feelings that I was having, but I still had this tiny little bit of hope. And I think actually that tiny bit of hope is in everyone somewhere, and that's what you've got to try and focus on. And remember that, you know, there is always light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes it seems like the tunnel is really, really dark and you can't see the end of it, but you just have to keep walking. You just have to keep going forward, because you will see that light and you can go towards it because it's there. So just hold on to that hope, never give up, because life is definitely worth living. Well, guys, we have reached the end of today's program, but don't forget, if you have a story that you would like to share, or you have any comments about this program or even today's show, please do contact us on info@chrissybshow.tv. You can also tweet us at Chrissy B Show, or leave a message on our Facebook page, The Chrissy B Show. Until next time, bye for now.
The good thing about cinnamon is if you're trying to give up sugar or you're trying to reduce your sugar levels, you can't take her anywhere.
Sorry,
if you're
I'm so sorry.
I thought that was quite a good thing. Stealing camera.
Sorry, I shouldn't have done that.
She got lavender all in her lips.
Okay, right, let me start again. Sorry, guys.